There are a few cats in this video. Oh, hi, my name is Pal, and I like to look at everything, and I like to stand on everything, and I get up into all sorts of mischief. Oh, yes, I do. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. That sounds like a song. How we doing? We're good, we're good? Yeah, we're good. Okay. Feels like I should have done something else. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me. We are carrying on with the gate this week. We are going to concentrate on just making the gate itself, maybe a few other little bits. And really this is about how long things take. So let's get straight into it. Sun is very bright. We're on day 2. I have the camera positioned right where the sun is, which makes it very difficult to talk to the camera. Yeah, I'm in the darkness, you probably can't see me. My eyes adjusting. Here we are, day 2 on the gate build. We're just laying out so I can put some tools down. I don't want to ruin the customer's nicely manicured lawn. Today we will be measuring the gap. I know what the gap is because I've done all those measurements before, but we're going to remeasure it because the concrete post is in there. And then we are going to cut up this wood and essentially make the gate. And the gate itself will be a sort of a lever design, and I'll show you as I'm building it and some of the considerations that I've got to take into account. But first, a cup of tea. I've actually got a cup of tea brewing. Yep, always start the day with a cup of tea. I think this is probably mid-morning, so I'm just warming up. The first thing I do a lot of the times when I get on site is actually just spend the time getting everything organized as you would normally do. But I do take a bit of time to plan out the day because you do a lot of thinking before you get there. And then when you get there, I don't know about you, but I know for me, I get these sudden bursts of inspiration. How am I going to deal with this problem? How am I going to fix this? And when I do that, I do my best to try to plan for those things. So we left the pole in place from last week, and of course we have it in the ground there, and we're looking at the fence that's sitting on the other side. That fence is probably not plumb. It's been there, my guess, maybe 10 years. It's not completely plumb. It may have moved. The wood just moves. And I couldn't really tell whether it was concreted in the ground. I couldn't find any concrete. The ground is quite soft because there's a lot of trees above me and a lot of falling leaves, so that kind of turns into peat, soft soil over time. And as I'm setting up, I'm doing a little bit of a dance and playing air guitar with a square. I haven't been able to do much this week because last week I had eye surgery. I actually had a cataract because I've got an eye condition that causes my eye to get a lot of scar tissue. And after years and years and years, it finally got so bad that I had cataract surgery, and it was amazing. It was like the most simplest procedure in the world. A little bit of discomfort, but then after 2 days, my eye is perfectly fine, and you might see it. I'm not wearing any glass in here because I've got a lens in my eye. It's just amazing. So in future videos, you might see me without glasses. I'll probably get a contact lens for this eye, and then this eye will just look normal. And if that's such a shock for you, think of all of the people who see me regularly. They're just going to go, oh! I have a variety of different tarpaulins that I use. This is quite a thick one for a small amount, and I've got a very large one that covers a larger area. Pal was wanting to know what I was doing, and I didn't want to scare him when I turned the saw on. You've got to be careful around animals. You don't want to hurt them. I'm starting to cut up the pieces for the gate, so there'll be 2 long sides and 2 small top and bottom. And a little bit of a trick, I try to do this a lot of the times. I either clamp 2 pieces together and then I cut them so I get it pretty much exactly the right size on both, or I butt them up together on one side, hold them, bring the saw down, and a little tap with the hammer to get it just perfectly right, and a quick measure of everything. Again, I have a mask because this is H4, which is treated lumber here in New Zealand, and I've got to make sure that when I cut it I'm not breathing all that stuff in because it's got a lot of chemicals. And I do use the miter saw as a flat reference. It does have some flat surfaces on it. Now I'm just trying to work out, have I got my distances right? How am I going to butt them together? I did use a simple butt joint, and I also wanted to make sure I've put the screws in the right distance. Obviously, if you've got them too close together, then the wood in between could split and it could come apart. And if you're too close to the edge, it could split. Again, doing more measurements. And you can see me going backwards and forwards. I will check one thing and then I'll go and do another measurement. Now, the main reason why is because that post that I put in, which is this one, is pretty plumb. The one that's already existing is not. I think it was a little bit in on the top. Did I say something wrong, or did I lead you down the wrong path? Maybe through the wrong door or through the wrong gate? If you reckon, just pop a comment down below and I'll have a read of it. It's hard to tell whether you can hear me over the lawnmower. I can see the background. What are we doing here? So we've got to screw this in. I'm just trying to work out if I've got all the right screws. I need it to go a certain depth. Just had to pause the music. Okay, so we're at the point now where we're about to screw all of this together. You can see here we've got a frame. That frame will have a diagonal piece. And once I've put it together, I'll show you why we're doing that. We're putting these timber lock screws on. It has 2 parts of the thread, the normal threading part and then sort of a locking part. I've used these many times before and they're really easy to get in. They're tricky to get out. And it's got a wide head on it so that it means that it spreads the load out more, holds the wood together. I kind of want to put a pilot hole in. You don't normally have to, but I'm going into end grain. It does have a tendency to force things open, so I'm going to put a pilot hole in, is what I should have said. I'm trying to find the right depth of screws because it's going to be sitting there for quite a while. I want them to go quite a way in to each side of the piece of wood. So this is the other part. Did I bring the right bit? I have a feeling I might not have. Ouch. And I don't think that's the right size. Well, that kind of ends that, doesn't it? I gotta pack all this up, go buy the thing, come back. What I might as well do is pack it all up. In fact, I'll cut this last piece of wood, I can take the measurements and I can show you what I'm doing and then work it out. We can work it out. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video. It makes a big difference to me. It makes me feel happy, and we all like to be happy. Okay, it's a little bit over exposed. They say better to underexpose. I'm cutting this. Yeah, I'll put it back to auto. Hey Jackie Jack. What chakalakas? No, it's all clamped. It's basically in the right place. And what we need to do is one thing we just want to check whether it's square. So we go from diagonal to diagonal. We've got 1355. And then the other diagonal, which is a little hard to... We've got 1355. Bang on the nose. What we're going to do is to give stability to this gate, is we're going to put a diagonal piece in like this. This is where the hinge is, and the diagonal runs on the starts furthest away from the hinge and comes down to the bottom hinge down here. The weight goes from here, and instead of going down and breaking this connection, it goes straight into this part, and this part bears some of the weight, a lot more of the weight. So just a short portion today. We only really measured and cut the outer dimensions. I haven't even been able to screw it together, but that's okay. We will go and get the drill bit. We might actually do that back at base, but we'll see. We're just going to tidy everything up now, and we will come back this afternoon tomorrow. So we'll be back tomorrow and hopefully finish all of this off. I'm not entirely sure why I do this. It's like this way, this way, this way, this way. One thing I've always enjoyed when I'm watching videos is all of the things that people sort of gloss over, and one of those things is setup. Now, I can't show you the setup every single time, that would just get boring, but when I'm on site I do have to go backwards and forwards quite a bit to the car. When that happens, I miss what's going on actually on site, and this is an occasion where Powell creeped underneath the tarpaulin, and of course I was out in the car carrying things over. He was like burying himself under the tarp. I get the table saw, put the table saw down, and I may have stepped on Powell. I hope I didn't. Anyway, he ran off, and then I continued to unpack all my stuff. So with all my tools, I started reshaping the gate, setting up from where I left off the day before. I've now got the right screws, and what we're really looking for is the length plus the little bit in there, and they're pretty good. They're treated, well, they're 4 treated pine. And it's always a good idea to clamp things together when you're using screws. With a nail, you could kind of lightly clamp it. With a nail, of course, there's this motion like that, either through a nailer or through a hammer. I lost my hammer here. I thought I left it at the client's house, but they never saw it. It's gone. So I bought another cheap hammer. Well, that last one wasn't a cheap one. This was a cheap one. I've never owned a hammer like this, like a thin bar one. I've always had quite the thick ones, and this one's slightly heavier. It's probably more of a framing nailer, whereas the other one that I had before is probably more of an engineer's hammer. But they were both claw hammers. This is a claw hammer. It's a 24 ounce, 680 grams. Anyway, glad to get a new hammer. And you can see my old hammer there. I have now clamped, screwed everything, just making sure I don't split the wood. Actually did that one backwards, didn't I? I might have pre-drilled those. I might not have. I can't see on the footage. I pretty much said I should have, so hopefully I did. And now I'm doing the cross measurement square method. I don't know what the true name of it is. I just kind of made that up. You basically just measure the two diagonals, and if the two diagonals are the same length, then you know you're square. If the one's shorter than the other or one's longer than the other, then you know you're not. And you keep adjusting the frame until you are square. And you can see there I've put both screws in there, and they are not flush, they are sunk. I could have countersunk them, but I didn't really need to. They push into the wood. And because that bugle head is splaying out the force, it actually does quite a good job to keep it all together. Now I'm making the brace part of the gate. The trickier part about this is that obviously both ends have angles, and I can only really sight the angles because I could measure it. Each corner is a right angled triangle, and then so I know the distance between the centers, but a lot of maths to work out something that I could basically just scribe by doing it underneath. And then I used the miter saw to get the angles right. But because my miter saw can't swing 78 degrees, it can only go 46 and 46 both sides. I did have to hold the wood out to one side and then chop the wood down. And to make the fit just that much more cleaner, I took out the electric planer and made the surfaces a lot more flat. And it's quite satisfying because normally I use that planer and I'm doing something quite large, whereas this planer here, the width was directly a good size for the wood. And I did a little bit on the end grain there. You've got to be a bit careful because the blade is spinning, and when it grabs a hold of the wood, it's going to rip the wood out. That's essentially what a planer does. Similar to what a circular saw does. It's all ripping wood. It's not politely shaving it very quickly. It's basically gouging. So I had to be careful that I didn't break all the end grain out. Now I'm securing the brace inside the frame, and I'm also doing one last square measurement to make sure I haven't knocked it out of square. And now I'm cutting up some of the short pieces for the side of the gate. It's a small little fence. You'll see later as I put those in place. I had it standing up on its end because I wanted to make sure the base was square to its side. And then Jack came along and had a little bit of a visit while I was installing it. And now I've gotten to the point where I've put the gate in. It's only clamped in. And now, as I was doing before, just getting the distances correct for this little side fence. Most of my time was really taken up by the backwards and forwards. You probably think, yeah, well, you just measure it twice and cut once. Sometimes that works, but for something like this, you want it to last a fairly long time. So you want to make sure things fit well. They're not loose and they're not too tight. And if they are too loose, then you're going to screw things together and pull things in, and it's going to bow something, and over time that's going to stay like that, and it may not be ideal. And of course me just taking a rest and poking my tongue out. Or you're in a situation where you are too tight and it's splaying something out, and that can cause the same problem. So you want to find a good balance between a certain amount of tightness, like an interference fit. If you know about metalwork, interference fit, not the same in woodworking, because seriously, you can force wood into a tight hole and it's like an interference fit, but it's actually more of a destruction fit. I'm now going back over what I've already done, because obviously I've made this gate, but the problem is that the gate is just too tight in that gap. So I have to cut one side of it down. To make that work better, I decided to unscrew it because I didn't want to hit the screws. If I hit the screws with the table saw, that wouldn't be very nice. And then I screwed it all together. I did actually do this a few times, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't constantly screwing these screws in and out. They do go quite a distance, and they can just, over time, it could loosen or it could split the wood. So I only wanted to screw them together once or twice. I'm screwing something in, possibly not the best angle. This was a short day. I only had a few hours this day to work on this job, and so I was just trying to get everything done, and I was unable to film me putting in the hinges. Okay, well, I'll just be on the edge of the frame. You might not be able to see, but I put this type of hinge on here. It is supposed to be able to lift it off, so I've only put one bolt in. We've got to put slats on here. Obviously me acting like an idiot. Well, there we go. Stage 1 completed. So tomorrow I just have to cut a relief angle here, a little deeper here to here, so deep here, thin here. So then this side, I'm holding the tripod, that's why it's so crappy. So when this side closes, it'll close further back. And I've got to cut that the whole way down there. That's nice and easy done. This is me talking about the brace and what the brace does, but you can see now in this shot, any forces will go down in a diagonal and into the post rather than hang off the edge. And that's what causes the gate to droop. And of course, the last part of this is me cleaning up. When I'm on site, I tend to try to keep my mess contained, because I do a lot of on-site work, like restoration, repair. It's not a good idea to bring tons and tons of tools in and make a big mess. And then so by the end of it, you've not only do you have to clean up, but you want to make sure that it's a very nice cleanup as opposed to some shoddy thing, because the client's going to come back and come back home and see a big mess. So that's why the tarp is always a good idea. I don't have any pack out plastic boxes because there's kind of no point. I don't even have the room to put my current tools in this workshop. So I just use plastic totes. I find that I can see in them, so I can know exactly what I'm carrying. But it would be nice sometimes to have things that I could like completely pack away. And ever since I got the blowy thing, I clean up my tools a lot better, and they last longer because they don't get all of that wooden gummy sap in them, because I'm constantly blowing things away. But I do actually need to give the miter saw a bit of a service because I've had it for maybe about 2 years and it is starting to get a bit gummy. But I might actually take that to an authorized reseller, authorized repairer, and get them to do the service on it. I did actually rip out the plastic rubber vacuum hosey thing when I was cutting a piece of wood that was just a bit too deep. And so now I'm finished, and I do one last check and then I'm done, off home. In the 2 days that I was filming, I didn't really complete as much as I would have liked, partly because I didn't have the right screws and I didn't have the right bit, but mainly because there was a lot of backwards and forwards trying to get that measurement right. The post was pretty straight, but the fence either side of the two were not. Two? I think there was only one post. We will be finishing the gate off next week and do a little bit of a reveal. The main reason why I split it all up is because I did film a lot, and there are some talking points that are always interesting to hear. And next week we're going to be doing some more of this and this and this. Of course, I meant this. And maybe a little bit of this. Can't wait to see you next week. Like and subscribe, and we will see you next week.